Hello. If you're seeing this video, it means that, I'm guessing it means that the internet has gone bad again in class on Wednesday. So I'm recording this video on Tuesday as a backup plan because I'd have no faith in the internet. I wanted to walk you guys through a few more key elements to being persuasive in your persuasive speeches and give you some more tools to work with. So let's just jump right to it. So here first, this might be a really obvious thing, but I want to just mention it, is that when you're working on a persuasive speech, think about your topic, and you are part of audience analysis is thinking about whether or not your audience would be receptive, neutral, or hostile to whatever it is you're talking to them about. That matters quite a bit. I mean, it might seem obvious right now, but think about what topic you're choosing and think about the class, your classmates, and be thinking about whether or not you think they will be hostile to it, neutral, or receptive. You can think ahead, and that changes the tone of how you give your speech. If you are giving a speech to a potentially hostile audience, then you want to use different tactics than if you're speaking to a receptive audience, one you know is receptive. One that you know is receptive, you can do things like joke a lot easier. You can be way more relaxed. You can make a lot more we statements. When things are hostile, then you need to be a bit more careful. In fact, I'd avoid even giving a persuasive speech in front of a hostile audience, but sometimes you have to. A great example of that would be, if you want to see one, would be watching Michelle Wolf's speech when she was addressing the press at the press dinner. Because look it up on YouTube. That is how you give a speech to a hostile audience. She smiles, she acts professional, and she makes sure she has practiced the hell out of her speech. And then she can give it with a smiling face and confidently to an audience that hates you. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it just to take a look. It's very interesting. So anyway, so I want to make sure I mention that. Audience types, be thinking about it. Also, I had you guys look at this already on Monday, the psychological persuasion techniques article. Hopefully you've read through it, and I just want to make sure I mention you do need to use one technique for your speech. So if it's not from that list, that's fine, but you need to, if it's not from that list, when at the end of your speech, when I ask you to tell us about what you did and how you prepared for it, be overt and tell me about it then. Because if I don't hear one of the obvious ones, I'm going to assume you didn't. Unless it is obvious. But sometimes we think things are obvious and they're not, right? That's just how it works. So make sure that you either tell me overtly. You can do it either way. I would recommend overtly telling me, even if it was one from the list. So something to think about. You do need to work in some type of psychological persuasion technique. And then you also need to work in these. Aristotle's pillars of persuasion. So here's what they, let's go through my PowerPoint for this. So Aristotle, this is where I started and everything went to hell on Monday. Aristotle lived quite a long time ago. He developed the art of rhetoric. He talked about how we convince people, and he came up with these, what he called the three pillars of persuasion: ethos, logos, and pathos. Ethos is an ethical source appeal. What that means is it's not just ethics, it's whether or not your source is ethical. We'll get into that a little more detailed. These two are usually obvious to people, logos and pathos. Logos is logic, pathos is passion. So if you're using emotions or humor or fear or anything like that, that's pathos. If you're using logic, numbers, trying to convince somebody using reason, that's logos. Ethos, well, what is that? Let's look at it. Ethos is when you cite somebody else and use their credibility, their honesty, their trustworthiness, or reputation to try and convince your audience. So what could that look like? This is an example right here, this little advertisement. No more back pain, doctor recommended, approved by you. The ethos appeal is that doctors in general are more respected, and their attitudes towards things like back pain is something you should probably listen to. So this is trying to convince you by saying doctors like it, right? Another way could be like if it was a celebrity endorsing it, if it was somebody really trustworthy, like, I don't know, I was going to say the president, our current president maybe, somebody like that, somebody that you're using their ethical standing to convince people that you are right. Interestingly, whenever you write an essay, if you cite people in your essay, if you tell the reader who you're citing because it's somebody impressive, like if you say, well, according to Bill Gates, blah, 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 that's ethos. You're trying to convince your reader to believe you because you said Bill Gates believes this. You've probably been using that forever in writing essays, but I don't know if you had a term for it, but that's what it's called. So that's ethos. Let's look at logos, just more obviously, more directly. Logos it's the root meaning of the word logic. It's connected, but it's clarity, reasoning, and evidence. Like this advertisement here is showing, it's trying to convince you to eat pop chips by saying that they have less calories, and it's showing you the math, and it's saying hopefully you will agree. Hopefully you'll see this and you'll think, yeah, that's true. Pathos, on the other hand, is all about the root word meaning suffering, experience, and that which befalls. But it's the same as the root for passion that we use. That's how I like to remember this. But it's not just passion. It's sympathy, humor, shock, anger, all of that, if you're using that to convince somebody. So like this advertisement, this little girl eating this ice cream. My daddy makes refrigerator trucks. It's adorable, right? You're supposed to look at this and go, oh, and be convinced. There's no logic behind this. This girl, who is she? You don't care. It's emotion. It's a very cute picture. If somebody uses puppies to try and sell you something, they're using pathos. So again, ethos, logos, pathos. Ethos is about credibility. Pathos is about emotion, and logos is about logic, right? So let's look at some examples. First off, we have this advertisement here. Coke. Yeah, just looking at this, what do you think it is? Well, I can tell you what I think it is. It's pathos. There's nothing about logic here. It's not telling you why you should have a Coke and like reasoning you into believing it. There is no one endorsing this. There is no ethical standing of anybody else that's being used. It's trying to sell you based on happiness, right? This picture looks happy. It's bright. It's colorful. The little beads of water on the Coke bottle are supposed to make you thirsty, all right? They're tapping into your feelings, your emotions. This one is also tapping into your feelings and emotions, but in a very different way, right? It's saying, look at this horrible, sad dog, right? Stop animal cruelty. Some people would look at this and they would see the Humane Society's name and they would think, oh, wait, that's ethos because I know who they are and I trust them. If you are somebody who that would work on, then yeah, that's ethos. This is a good example of how they're mixed. Oftentimes good persuasion attempts use more than one. It'd be best if you use all three. In your speech, I want you to use all three. So let's look at some more examples so you get an idea of what you want. That's why I'm talking about this. You need to use this in your speech. So this here, what would this be? Logos, right? Facts, figures, numbers. As soon as you see a graph, you should be like, oh, they're using logic and reason to convince me. This advertisement, where it shows colors for coverage, what is this? I think this would be logos. What do you think? You could disagree with me, and that's totally fine. But I think it's using logic and saying, do you live in one of these areas that's white? Then you definitely don't want this one, whatever. It's trying to use logic. But this could be ethos, depending on if you think that these names, AT&T and Sprint and Verizon, if any of those are meaningful to you. They aren't to me, but I know plenty of people who will buy Apple products purely because it has the word Apple in front of it. So that's an ethos appeal for those people. This is an ethos appeal, right? 9 out of 10 dentists can't be wrong. It's just referencing dentists. Anytime you see this type of a thing, 9 out of 10 kids agree, kid tested, mother approved. That's ethos. That's using ethos. Let's look at some trickier ones that blend things a little more often. This advertisement here, well, this one's interesting, I think, because here's all this list of all these things that smoking does to you. Looks kind of logos, right? But the more you look at them, these are a little fuzzy, right? May cause gum disease, may cause cancers, wrinkles to your skin, just in generic wrinkles. Those are true, but I think this is even more so pathos hiding and disguising itself as logos, so that somebody who is a logical person would see this and it might work on them. Somebody who's motivated by passion and imagery would see this and go, ugh, and it might motivate them, right? That's my opinion. You can disagree, but I think this is pathos disguising itself as logos. What about this one? Well, this is ethos. It's trying to sell you this watch based purely on the fact that James Bond uses this. I find this hilarious because he's not even a real character. It's not saying that Daniel Craig wears it. It's saying James Bond wears it. But it works. This really does work. If you have somebody that you look up to that you think is awesome and they tell you, hey, you should try this thing, it might work. And that's called ethos. Here we have another picture. I think that we see logos right here, right? We see a number right immediately. But then take a look at the whole picture. It's almost like Jesus rising from the grave right here with this Listerine. This is just blank. There's this glow. A lot of that's pathos. It's trying to use the imagery to tap into your emotions. So I'd say it's both. Here's another one where we're using ethos. Trusted by moms. It even puts this in here, which I find hilarious. 5 stars by Sydney 2, who has this quote. How many people look at this ad and go, "Well, that's clearly not a real person. Who the hell is Sydney 2?" You should all be doing that, right? We should all be. But we don't. Sometimes we see these and we go, mm-hmm. And I think this is especially hilarious. I don't think I've mentioned this in class yet, but I ran a Kickstarter a few years ago for a board game I made, and I put lots of reviews on the Kickstarter page from my friends who helped playtest it. I put a lot of work in making sure those were all real. Way later, realizing I could have made up all of them. All of them. Ethos works, and it doesn't have to be true for it to work. Weird, right? All right, so let's go back to looking at some of these. This one here, right? Ooh, look at that. I think that's pathos. It's saying text and you die, right? Trying to really motivate you. Look at the colors. Look at this, the death colors of the scene, but also the dead body. A lot of pathos going on. This next one, I believe, is also pathos, but a very different variety. Yeah, right? So this has a joke, makes you think about sex, so that's pathos. This makes you hungry, so it's emotion, feeling, but it also it's very sensual. She is very sensual. This whole picture is ridiculous because it is a lot of pathos trying to get you to buy it. But it's also ethos, right? Because this is Paris Hilton. So she's like, you see her using it. Doesn't even have to put her name on it. If she's that well known, then it can still be ethos. So it's a blur. It's a blending of the two. This here, I think, you might have seen this ad, Axe body spray here and here and get you women. This is also ethos. It's using humor though, right? It's not actually telling you that spraying Axe in your armpits gets you women. It knows that you know that's not true, but it wants you to look at it and go, ha, and then buy it, right? All this stuff. And it's like, oh, that makes sense. And oddly enough, something a lot like this worked on me when I was in college, and I ended up buying a good friend of mine ended up buying hair bleach because there was a commercial where these guys would bleach their hair and these women would be kind of like licking their hair, and we were like, this is absurdly ridiculous, but let's bleach our hair with this stuff. Let's go buy it. It's funny. Oddly, that's a pathos, and it worked. Not because we wanted women. I didn't want women licking my hair. My friend Jamie probably did, but I thought it was hilarious, and that's also the same thing. That's another type of emotion. This here, this looks like logos. This looks like a logical statement, right? But this is pathos again, because this logical statement doesn't mean anything. If you wouldn't eat a cat, this could say, if you wouldn't eat your mom, why eat a turkey, right? Logically, if you break this down, you could submit anything for cat. But it's aiming at kids of all things, and it has this picture, and it wants you to think about your cat as a living animal, so it wants you to feel bad if you eat a turkey. So it might work, right? What's it called? PETA is highly effective at a lot of this. Here's another one. This looks like logic. Anti-God is anti-American. Anti-American is treason. Traitors lead to civil war. This is not logic. This is logical fallacy called slippery slope, where you go from one thing to, your mom might have used this when you were growing up, where she's like, if you don't do your homework, you'll become a hoodlum, and if you become and then you'll die. It just ends with this, goes from 0 to 60 way too fast. That's called a slippery slope. And it's a logical fallacy. This is one. So it is pathos, right? This isn't logos. Or it is logos, but it's logos used incorrectly. Blurry, not sure which. In your speeches, I want you guys to use ethos, logos, and pathos. And I want you to use them, this is what we were going to do in class, is I'm going to break you into groups, and I want you to, have you share your topic ideas, and as a group, brainstorm what of each of these. I'm hopeful, maybe we can do this. I'm hoping we can, I don't know when we will, though. If the internet's not working, ugh. But anyway, the whole point is I want you guys to use in your speech one of each. An ethos appeal, a logos appeal, and a pathos appeal. Well, what that means is, to break that down, I want you to use logic at some point, obviously. I want you to use passion to convince us at some point, obviously. And I want you to cite me. Ethos, an easy way to use ethos is to cite somebody else who is an expert at whatever you're talking about. Very easy way to use ethos, right? So if you're talking about human trafficking, and then you want to, I don't know who's an expert on that, but you could cite them and say, according to so-and-so, head of the FBI, there are, this is whatever, I don't even know what you're going to say. But if it's used to try and convince us, then that's effective, and that would be ethos. So make sure you use all three in your persuasive speech somehow. Work them in there. And the other thing I was going to talk to you guys about is logical fallacies. So I'm going to walk you through a few of those really quick. The idea. So a logical fallacy is an error in reasoning or a flawed argument. It's an argument that does not conform to the rules of logic but appears to be sound. We're going to look at some logical fallacies. Here's some big ones. Here's the 7 we were going to talk about in class. There are like 100 at least logical fallacies out there. So we're just going to talk about 7 ones. I'm not going to go through those in this video. Instead, I'm going to look at the examples and we're going to talk about them. So here's one of the examples that I was going to show you guys. Ooh, let me scooch that up just a bit so you can see the whole thing. There you go. So, yeah, this is an ad. It was really used by Obama, and it says, Romney's not the solution, he's the problem. This is what's called ad hominem. This is what a logical fallacy when you just insult people, when you just insult the opposition. You don't put any reasoning behind it. This doesn't tell you why Romney's the problem. It doesn't give you anything. It just says, he's a problem. That's an attack. That's just a blatant attack. So please do not have any of those in your speech, right? That's why we're talking about these. Avoid them. So there's that. There's one. Let's look at another one that I want to make sure we talk about. Well, there's this one that I already kind of talked about. This is a slippery slope. I already talked about that, right? So it's bad logic. It goes, anti-God is anti-American. The very first premise, is that true? Well, of course not. There are atheist Americans, and that's completely fine. Anti-American is treason. Is that true? Well, no. Being anti-American isn't exactly treason. You can be anti-American and either not be from America, which is fine, then you're just anti-American. Or if you are an American and you're anti-American, you're 100% free to have that opinion. And then traitors lead to civil war. That's not true because we're not in a civil war right now, and we had a bunch of traitors attack the Capitol in January. So there's a good example of that. And let's see here. Traditional wisdom is one I was going to show you, but I don't have one of those handy. That's when you just kind of refer to what people have been saying all along. And that's not good. I want you to cite good sources that are new, that are fresh. If you're going to cite a source for ethos, make sure it's fresh, a new one. So that is my quick, really fast run through of logic and fallacies and using the 3 appeals. So I'm hoping this is helpful. My idea now is, while you've hopefully watched this video, I will have the Zoom class still running, and you can go to it if you want to talk to your classmates and brainstorm ideas for these exact things. If you want to brainstorm ideas for a topic, first off, if you don't have one, go join the class and say, I don't know what to do. And maybe somebody will give you an idea. Maybe talk through some things with people, figure out what your hobbies and interests are and how they might relate to some type of social justice, earth health, human rights issue. And by the way, those connection to those things, you can be loose. I just want to make sure we're all talking in the same direction. The other thing that you can do is when you're sitting with the class, if you want to go back and brainstorm with the class, is come up with ideas for how you could come up with ethos, logos, and pathos for your speech. And then there was one other thing you have to do, and that is incorporate a psychological persuasion technique. So that would be a really great thing to use this time for when you're hanging out together. But yeah, I am very sorry that class had to turn into this. I hope nobody ever sees this video. I'm going to stop it now. If you are seeing it, thank you for being so patient, and I'll see you Monday. Email me between now and then if you have any questions, please. Oh, and if you want to meet one-on-one, I think my computer can do that. So if you want to meet one-on-one and practice your speech between now and Monday, also, I'm 100% available for that. So yeah, good luck, and I'll see you Monday if I don't talk to you beforehand.